In September of 2015, we took a 13-day guided tour of Italy's marquee sites by bus. We sampled the culture, plus had fun people watching and taking in everyday life in this beautiful country. First things first, dining. While breakfast and lunch, even at the highway stops, were satisfactory, most of the restaurants that served dinners really shone. The leisurely meals often went late into the night, considering that typically many courses are offered. At the Maggiore restaurant, site of our first tour dinner, there was a genial waiter who merrily handed out roses and kisses to the ladies, and nearly to one of our male tour companions. That, coupled with strolling musicians and the expertly presented delicious food, completely drew us in. Gelato is everywhere, and we made sure to sample it as often as possible. The pastry and other food stores further offered irresistible treats. We capitulated often. Now that we're fed, let's begin touring Rome, starting with its umbrella pines and the domes of its many churches. Beyond the expected museums and ruins were fascinating surprises, such as a small ancient pyramid. Often seen in Rome on public facilities are the letters SPQR and images of a she-wolf nursing two baby boys. SPQR stands for the Senate and People of Rome, a governmental reference during the Roman Empire and now the municipal symbol of Rome. The images are of the boys Romulus and Remus, the city's somewhat mythical founders, said to be raised by a she-wolf nearly 3,000 years ago. Walking a convoluted, mistake-laden route to the Roman Forum, we passed the towering TRAJAN'S column. Originally, it memorialized a Roman emperor's battles on a spiral bas-relief. It looks like a marble graphic novel. Emperor Trajan's statue at the top disappeared at some point in the Middle Ages. In the 16th century, a statue of St. Peter replaced the vacancy atop the 115-foot column at the order of a pope. The ruins of the Forum and Colosseum are huge, impressive sights. The Forum was the bustling social and commercial center for the city of up to 1 million people. Some of its structures, such as the Arch of SEPTIMIUS Severus, commemorate major battles in the manner of Trajan's column. The Temple of Saturn housed the Roman treasury, much of it derived from war spoils. A short walk away, passing through Constantine's Arch, is the Colosseum, said to seat up to 70,000. It was built from travertine, and all three classical types of columns were used. The present-day faux gladiators are only harmful to one's wallet. Within the Colosseum, the underlying passages not only served as green rooms for the gladiators and animal attractions, but could be flooded to reenact sea battles. The shows could go on for much of the day. The holes in the wall were for long-gone iron rods that in turn supported an enormous awning. The privileged sat in the bottom section, and everyone else watched from further up. Women mostly were banished to the nosebleed seats. Record-high temperatures lingered on during our September visit, leading us to quench our thirst from one of the many big-nose public fountains in Rome. Rome's more modern public buildings also display a great deal of artwork and varied facades. In the Capitoline Hill area, the massive Victor Emmanuel complex memorializes the mid-19th century national unification under the Italian king. Also, there are artifacts of Italian national pride, such as the tomb of the unknown soldier who was killed during World War I. A changing of the guard ceremony occurred while we were there. So many museums, so little time. Two that we visited in Rome were the Capitolines and the National. Both have well-curated collections of ancient Roman and Greek art, as well as exhibits of dwelling rooms from the era of the Roman Empire. These clips are but peeks into the amazing collection. Walking to the Capitolines entails a steep but worthwhile climb. Here is a sample of the treasures inside, such as a gigantic rendering of Emperor Constantine's head, a fierce battle between a horse and a lion, and an opulent ceiling. On the way out, the rear view of a statue of an amorous couple is visible in a second-floor window. The National Museum of Rome also focuses on ancient art. Here is a funerary piece for a husband and wife, a mosaic of a cat hunting a bird, a fishing boat surrounded by gigantic creatures, a statue of Niobe after being mortally shot by an arrow, and immersive displays of Roman house interiors. A small but fascinating museum is the Capuchin ossuary, displaying the artfully arranged bones of thousands of the monks of that order in a church crypt. A plaque in one of the rooms reads, "What you are now, we once were. What we are now, you shall be." Photography is forbidden, so these are photos of postcards of their, bone zone. Vatican City, a tiny country unto itself, has disproportionately vast art treasures and religious significance. Over the crowded museum entryway is a tribute sculpture of Michelangelo and Raphael, who did so much work there. Everything here is on a grand scale, including the crowds. We quickly passed huge frescoes, tapestries, sculptures, trompe-l'oeil ceiling paintings, and gorgeous inlaid floors. Our eyes, necks, and legs are getting quite a workout taking in these marvels. Orestes, our guide, had to orient us to the Sistine Chapel in a courtyard because no talking or photography is allowed in the chapel. But how can anyone in a group not at least whisper in awe at the magnificence? Or try to sneak in a photo? Passing the Swiss Guard, we entered St. Peter's Basilica, the largest Catholic church in the world, and of course the home of the Pope. St. Peter's altar, designed by Bernini, has four towering, twisting, and inwardly curving bronze pillars supporting a canopy over the tomb of St. Peter. Gazing up into the rotunda, every inch seems to be covered in paintings. Back at ground level is one of Michelangelo's Pietas. We then exit into the vast expanse of St. Peter's Square. A visit to the Pantheon shows where some of the architectural ideas for St. Peter's and so many other domed buildings came from. This was originally a temple to the Roman gods and now is a Catholic church. The open oculus in the ceiling is exposed to the weather, but the floors slope for drainage when it rains. Time for a people watching and fashion styles break. It didn't rain most of the time while we were there, but it was quite hot and humid. Nevertheless, so many of the Italians seemed to take that in stride, dressing elegantly. Here are some glimpses, including an amusing modeling shoot involving an apple in Milan's Galleria. Especially in the north, the continental look is still exemplified by many Italian men casually draping a sweater over their shoulders, even while riding a bicycle. Back in Rome, we joined the crowd at that famous open-air hangout, the Spanish Steps, replete with horses sporting earmuffs, giant advertising signs, and occasional prone and upright beggars. We understand that the party scene really doesn't get going until late in the night, but we didn't stay long enough for that. Riding along the autostrada northward from Rome, we passed many Tuscan hillside towns and olive groves. 3 hours later, we arrive in Pisa to see the starkly white Carrara marble Duomo Cathedral, the 180-foot-tall baptistry building, and of course the slightly taller bell tower with its 4 degrees of tilt. Unfortunately, our tour schedule doesn't allow time for the 2-hour wait to enter and climb the leaning tower to the top. But we do have time to take the typical posed picture with it. Here's one aspiring young photographer aiming her camera at the cathedral. Wonder how the photo came out. Before we reached the tower, and on the way back to our bus, we had to pass through a gauntlet of cheap souvenir hawkers and street performers doing all kinds of odd things for €1 or €2. Next stop, Florence. This is like a concentrated version of Rome with very fine art and architecture, splendid gardens, but with much that is unique to that city. Masterpieces abound. Here is the original slingshot-equipped giant statue of David in the Accademia Gallery Museum. In one piazza, there is Neptune's fountain, the Rape of the Sabine sculpture, and statues of city notables such as Machiavelli and Galileo, lined up practically cheek to cheek. There are many distractions as we cross the Arno River via the Ponte Vecchio. Crowds are only too happy to patronize the shops and stalls, which range from schlock to the well-crafted and very expensive. Hey, an Irish pub in the Neptune's Fountain Square. Looks like a reason for a drink. We stopped and sampled. The Pinocchio story was written here. This souvenir shop invites you to sit with its famous wooden character. Back on the street, elaborately made-up mute human statues wait for donations as they dare passers-by to see if they flinch. This tourist may be flinching instead. The magnificent Uffizi gallery was a highlight of the entire tour. Our guide, Andrea, expertly navigated the crowds while describing with dry wit the details of the many masterpieces that encompass the floor, walls, and the fascinating ceilings. While not as tall as the Vatican Museum's chambers, and not as extensive as other art collections, such as those in the Louvre, the Uffizi has a premium collection of Renaissance and medieval art. We passed some street performers on the crowded walkway across the Arno to the Pitti Palace, with its 2 peaceful gardens, the Boboli and Bardini. The aptly named Fort Belvedere, near the Bardini Gardens, affords a panoramic sweep of the city. Also here was sculptor Antony Gormley's whimsical temporary exhibit called Human. Scattered atop high towers and against walls, and lined up in various poses, these sculptures captivated us. Giotto's tower blazes with the symmetry of color, even though it isn't painted. Various types of marble provide the color. Time for a break from touring. Here are shots of folks we encountered on the way just hanging out, relaxing, and generally having fun. In Stresa, 2 men compete in a game of bocce. Nearby, on the shore of Lake Maggiore, children's laughter fills the playground. Watery Venice, with its nearly total absence of parks, does not hold back these up-and-coming soccer stars. Meanwhile, back at the Spanish Steps, all ages are entranced by the giant airborne soap bubbles that are wandered about. This Roman statue couldn't resist taking a selfie. The ancients are keeping up with the times. Check out these kids cartwheeling at the Capitoline Museum in Rome next to the behemoth ancient statues. The bigger kids are having fun at the Forum. We crossed the border into Switzerland, spending a couple of hours in Lugano. Lugano is clean, quiet, and peaceful. Anyone for chess? A gate on the lake frames Mount San Salvatore. Colorful flower gardens abut the shoreline promenade, with occasional crazy angled trees to puzzle over. Swans calmly paddle about in the sparkling light. Returning to Italy, we stayed 2 days in Stresa on the shores of Lake Maggiore. Stresa is a resort town in Italy's mountainous lake region. Much like Lugano, it's quiet and relaxing. By chance, we were in Stresa on September 11th. Can you imagine our surprise when we discovered a permanent memorial to the 9/11 victims in the U.S.? On top of that, it was very touching when we observed what has become an annual tribute to those victims and emergency responders. The mayor officiated at the ceremony. A major attraction here is the Borromeo family's estate on Isola Bella. Our group took motorboats to get to this intriguing island. Beginning with the 17th century ornate Baroque palace, we learn about some of the distinguished guests. Napoleon Bonaparte stayed here twice, we are told. The first time as a guest and the second as an invader. Some guest. The lower level provides a cool summer getaway of shell-lined grottos and an amusing collection of marionettes and oddities. Once out of the palace, we are on our own to visit the elaborate geometrical gardens and see the white Chinese peacocks. It was after their mating season, so they didn't have the extensive plumage typical of that bird. Every bit of vegetation appears to be trimmed to a master design. From the amphitheater at the peak of the pyramid-like stack of terraces, we see an eccentric, if not over the top, 360-degree expanse of eye-grabbing sights. The amphitheater is a collection of stony half-dome niches housing metaphorical statuary, intricately arranged plantings, and high-flying obelisks. Yet the Borromeo family motto is humility. The semi-tropical climate enables the fragrant, rare, and exotic flora to grow well. Here's a view of the mazes in the Garden of Love. As if they were wings, fronds emerge from this figure's back. Statues ring the roof of the gift shop. Naturally, when discussing Italy, music must be included. Along the way, we happened upon many performances, ranging from soloists to 5-piece orchestras of nattily dressed musicians. Here are just a few. Here's a rehearsal at Milan's La Scala. In Venice's St. Mark's Square, 3 5-piece orchestras take turns entertaining us after sundown. adding to the performance, the tower bell chimed in on the hour. Sweet sounds of a singer accompany a group of gondoliers, echoing throughout the canals of Venice. Lively music from a tarantella show gets us dancing. And lastly, as pointed out by Anna, our tour director, the throaty roar of an accelerating Ferrari.
That's a nice sound.
Milan provides a different venue for music, the world-famous La Scala Opera House. For those who worship fashion, the Galleria and its shops of international designers provides a quasi-religious experience. Then there's the intricate architecture of Milan's Duomo, the Cathedral Santa Maria Nascente. If the old saying that those who suffer bird droppings will have good luck is true, then there are a lot of fortunate people in the cities of Italy. In Florence, one of us was dive-bombed by a pigeon, but wasn't feeling particularly blessed afterward. The odds of being gifted that way in St. Mark's Square in Venice are excellent, especially if you're feeding those captivating winged creatures. Venice, the serene republic. Gondolas and gondoliers, fine lace weavings and unique blown glass, seafood, exquisite masks, the Medicis and their astonishing architecture. The many bridges over the canals and the winding passageways make it a very walkable and confusing city for pedestrians. Unfortunately, need for upkeep of those bridges sometimes is blemished by gigantic advertising posters. This fellow, known as the Lion's Mouth, was a mailbox provided for anonymous denunciations by informants in hopes of gaining some personal benefit. Among Venice's landmarks is the Doge's, or Duke's, Palace. This multifunctional facility once served as home to the leader of the Venetian city-state, chambers of government, and prison. The Chamber of the Great Council is one of the largest rooms in Europe. Behind the Doge's throne is Il Paradiso, the longest canvas painting in the world. It, along with many other paintings in the room, was done by Tintoretto and his son. Next up is the Bridge of Sighs, aptly named for prisoners as they walk to their cells, peeking through the tiny windows for a look at their city in which they never again could walk freely about. Now for a few final glances of the city. The omnipresent canals create a special charm and challenge. While the water has been mastered as a means for transportation, it is polluted in places and constantly threatens the town's existence. Venice is expensive, redolent with history, lacking in trees, bustling with activity, bursting at the seams, and bristling with creativity. It can overwhelm the senses, yet be relaxing and alluring. It's like no island. We happened upon several outdoor weddings. Look at these charming girls who were part of a wedding in Rome. In Florence's Old Square section, bagpipers announced more matrimonial vows that had been exchanged. Our stop in historic Padua, known for Shakespeare's use of it as a setting for The Taming of the Shrew and site of many of scientist Galileo's lectures at the 800-year-old University of Padua, opened our eyes to another Vatican treasure, the Basilica of St. Anthony. One is hard-pressed to visit any of Italy's houses of worship without discovering beautiful art. As we walk back to our tour bus in Padua, we pass one of the largest squares in Europe. It's actually not at all square, but consists of 78 statues and obelisks lining an elliptical park. Our bus climbs the hills of Umbria, the medieval town of Assisi coming into view. On the hilltop is the papal castle known as Rocca Maggiore. At the base of Assisi, in the upper and lower basilicas of St. Francis, we learn more of the history of the native son who became a Catholic saint and created the Franciscan monastic order. This very humble man probably would not have appreciated the massive basilicas that were posthumously constructed in his honor. We hiked to the Basilica of St. Clare to learn about one of his first followers. Like Francis, Clare renounced the wealthy lifestyle of her family to tend to the poor. The uphill walk takes us past pink limestone staircases, facades with an abundance of clay pots, and earthly temptation in the form of alluring treats and other goods. We encounter a group of joyfully singing sisters. Sorrento, south of Naples, was our base for excursions along the Amalfi coast and to the island of Capri. We had the best seafood here and the best tomato sauce pizza. Even though our room's balcony was perched over active railroad tracks, we found this southern Italian city to be as relaxing as Assisi and Stresa. The view on our minibus ride along the cliffs of the Amalfi coast is spectacular. Passing groves of lemons and olives, eventually we reach one of its crown jewels, Positano. This picturesque town is a good place to get huge lemons that are grown all around the Gulf of Naples and limoncello liqueur made from lemon rind. Positano is also known for colorful painted tiles and countless shops. There's an up-tempo, resort kind of feeling here. The narrow, sharply slanted road takes us through crowded, tight passages that beg us to explore further. But there are a few places that offer solitude. A comfortable hydrofoil ferries us to the sunny resort isle of Capri and Anna Capri. Immediately after disembarking, the funiculare transports us up the steep hill to Anna Capri. From there, we walk further up the mountainside to the lovely Augustus Gardens. It provides a great vantage point overlooking the three rock formations known as the Faraglioni. They tower an average of 330 feet above the sea. The courtyards and statuary for the downhill stroll back to Capri compete for attention. Back at sea level, we have a few minutes to take in the marina, grab a big Luigi sandwich, then take the ferry back to Sorrento. We have one last stop to make. Volcanic Mount Vesuvius looms over vineyards and olive groves on the way to Pompeill. This was the site of the famous 79 AD surprise eruption that buried the city of about 11,000 in up to 20 feet of ash. Extensive excavation here provides great insight into imperial Roman life. There are many houses with intact wall paintings and other decorations, and a large, partially restored amphitheater. From there, we begin a long and revealing tour through the dusty streets. The local brothels advertise the specialties of the staff. One of the most eerie sights is of people who were buried alive during the eruption. Pyroclastic flow enveloped them at the moment of death, then hardened into rigid castings of their bodies that eventually decomposed. Some of them have been filled in with plaster or resin and brought to the surface. A dog gruesomely frozen in time this way also is on display. It's like seeing a ghost from the past. The trip was terrific, entertaining, educational, and eye-opening. Despite the fast pace and long bus rides, Congenial companions and expert guides made experiencing this broad slice of Italy memorable. We hope you have enjoyed some of that same special feeling.